Hi there. In this video we are going to talk about how easy it is and demonstrate how simple it is to create an integration that links together Gecko with Dynamics. Now, to illustrate this, we're actually going to create a brand new integration on this. We're going to demonstrate what the field mapping process looks like within Gecko. And then finally, we'll build a really simple form where we map some fields over and we'll see that data get pushed in real time from Gecko to Dynamics. So buckle in, there's a lot to get through. Let's jump into it then. So to begin with, I've logged into my Gecko test instance right here. I'm going to go to settings and we're going to create a brand new integrations in the integration section, and let's choose a new one. Now Gecko supports multiple integrations. You'll have actually seen a couple of different CRMs that I'm currently linking to on this particular account. But for this, I'm going to go ahead and add my details. Now, we do have a step-by-step guide for the types of things that you'll need to do on the Azure portal in order to generate your Dynamics instance URL, your app ID, and your password key. Fortunately, I haven't had to do this myself, so I'm just going to pause this momentarily while I copy and paste the details that are pre-prepared for the purposes of this video. Okay, so I've pasted in some of those details there. We have our URL, our app ID, good to go. Now, all that's left for me to do is to choose which root module we want to link to. Now, the good news is it depends on how you're currently using Dynamics that you want to support this. Do your incoming responses and student data, do you classify them as leads, and then when they're qualified, when they enroll, do they become contacts, or is everyone a contact? We support either way. It does change how the integration works slightly, but the really good news is it does not mean, for instance, if I select lead here, it doesn't mean that you can't push also to the contact module and vice versa. It just changes subtly how the integration works is all. I'm going to choose contact because I'm a contacts guy, and what we'll do, we've also got the ability of choosing what we're using for our events module. Now, some of our partners do enjoy using click dimensions in Gecko, in which case we can push event information there, but let's go for the native campaign module. Last thing that I'm going to do is just enter my password key, and let's click connect with Dynamics. Now, all I need to do here is authenticate with my user details. So I'm going to go ahead and get that popped in. Excellent. Unfortunately, I forgot to start the video there, but all that we've missed in terms of the pausing there while I got those credentials was adding my username and my password for my user that had the requisite permissions to create the integration here. And we can see that we're on our integration page. Now, immediately, because we chose contacts as our main module, we've pulled over and we've mapped the Dynamics contact table, and we've taken the first name attribute, the last name attribute, and the email, and we've mapped them to the Gecko first name, last name, and email. So without having to do anything at all, we can theoretically start pushing across really basic information from Gecko. Now, the field mapping processing in Gecko is tremendously simple. In the top right hand corner, we have this new attribute button. And what we're doing here is we're pinging and we're querying Dynamics, and we're saying what tables or modules in Gecko parlance do you have on option. And you can see there's Dynamics is terrifying in terms of scope for the amount of things that it can manage. But in this case, it's contacts that I'm interested in. And here we can see all of the different attributes within that the contact table itself. So we can say, for instance, maybe, telephone is something that we absolutely want to be pulling across. What would that be called? Mobile phone. Now, here's the attribute within Dynamics. And what do we want to map it to within Gecko? Is there an existing telephone field? In this case, there absolutely is. So let's create that link. And now, really simply, just like that, we've told Gecko that when you have a telephone number and you're told to sync, push it over to the contacts mobile phone field. It does get better though. If we want to link over something like program, let's say enrollment year or current year of study, then we have the ability to, let's imagine we didn't have an inquiry year field. We can tell Gecko, create a brand new inquiry year. Here's the type of field I want you to support, but also pull over that options list. So what we'll do there is we'll pull over the valid options that exist within this attribute on Dynamics, but we'll also pull over the GUID so that the correct information is syncing back to Dynamics with each and every time. And if you need to update those, if those lists change, you've got the option within the integration to refresh and pull over those new options lists every single time. So really, really simple. Now we have our fields mapped here. Now the second part of this I promised was let's go to a form and let's show this in action, pushing over that information. So let's come to forms. We'll call this my first Dynamics form. And we'll tell Gecko it's the full name, the email, and the telephone that we're looking to sync over. Now, in addition to being able to customize all of these different attributes on the integrations page and defining what goes where, let's imagine that we also wanted to push something, for the sake of the argument here, to the leads module, which is sometimes, I forget what it's called, I think it's called inquiries, isn't it? Inquiry type. Inquiry, that's it. I think that's what the leads is called. So let's imagine that we wanted to also push something to a particular attribute here, like course, for example. Let's track that. And let's go back to our form. Let's add in a really simple form field here. Now, I deliberately didn't pull over the options list, but let's imagine that we wanted to give options for English, physics, and yeah, that's fantastic. Okay. Perfect. Let's go ahead and save that. So for each of these fields then, we're telling Gecko, because you're saving to the full name field, it's already mapped. If we come to the integrations tab, we can see we're telling Gecko, push this value, the first name in this field, to the Dynamics first name and the Dynamics last name field. Same for email, same for telephone. For program of interest, because we built this on the form, it isn't a predefined selection that we set up on the integrations page. We can actually tell Gecko, when you get information in this field, first thing I want you to do is send this over to the course field in the leads entity or module. Really, really simple. Now what I'm going to tell Gecko to do is, as soon as the form submission comes in, I want you to sync automatically so we don't have to do anything, and then let's pop in a form response and see that push over to Dynamics. Now, this field probably won't work. In fact, it definitely won't work because I've not pulled over the actual list, but let's see what happens anyway. Okay, that has successfully synced over. Now, as anticipated, because I wasn't using the valid GUIDs, Gecko wasn't able to push across that program of interest, which was stupid in hindsight. But I removed that mapping from the form. I told Gecko, resync this response please, and within a couple of seconds we had our Dynamics ID back. Now if we hop over to searching contacts, we can see that contact's now been created on Gecko. That name, last name, email address, telephone number have all pushed over. So all is very well and good there. Now it's really important to note as well that within Gecko we will trigger a sync anytime an email is sent. In Gecko, we'll refresh the contact and sync that up so the student's timeline will be updated. We'll also do the same for text messages, for any calls made to the student through Gecko, and likewise for any conversations with them on Gecko chat. But that's the gist. As you can see, incredibly quick to get up and running and pushing information across, and thereafter it's just a case of saying to Gecko, these fields here link to these fields on Dynamics.